Yeah, Herman is cut. Pretty muscularly defined, you might say. Like De Niro in Raging Bull, or De Niro in Cape Fear, for that matter. As a matter of fact, he's been ripped ever since he saw Raging Bull for the first time, back when it first played on a young HBO in the mid-'80s. Average height, average weight, and probably around 165. But those are the only average things about him. And after he left school to go to UConn, he said he stopped using weights. He said he did all this strength training, just standing on the floor. He tried to convince me that you can imagine weight resistance just as easily as you can feel it from picking up a weight bar. Yoga, Tai Chi, what have you. It's like a place he would go in his head, off to some progressive New Age land where mainstream stuff isn't needed. Well, I never really had any choice but to believe him, because when he came up to Boston, he was always twice as ripped as I was. I've always been bigger and I've always been able to put up more weight, but I have no doubt that he's twice as strong as me, pound for pound. One of the things I learned from lifting weights for the last 5 years is that strength comes from somewhere else besides size. I've seen guys half my weight put up twice as much. Anyway, even when Herman was lifting weights, he never tried to max out. He only did repetitions with a light bar. He never actually showed the rest of us how strong he was, how much he could put up. The rest of us, meanwhile, were busting blood vessels trying to put up the biggest loads possible. Herman would just stand there twitching every little angled muscle in his upper body and laugh at us. If you know anything about weightlifting, you know that it doesn't help much to have somebody laughing at you when you've got several hundred pounds of iron up over your head. Herman has always been pretty smart about his body, and I guess that rounds things off. I guess he's always been pretty smart about everything. He doesn't kill himself trying to lift huge amounts of weight, and he doesn't kill himself with food or anything either. Sure, he drank a lot and smoked a little pot like the rest of us, but he always drank 2 gallons of water after he'd been out drinking, and he always ran 6 miles a day after getting really high. He had his cake and ate it too, you might say. Herman has done all his own cooking ever since he moved away from home. He's been big on things like rice and vegetables and clam sauce and the occasional huge pasta dinner. He doesn't eat huge meals often, but when I challenge him, he'll eat 6 full helpings next to my 3. He says he does it to prove a point. And notice how he keeps proving points. He did it to prove to me that his eating modest meals was on account of willpower. It has nothing to do with lack of appetite. He tried to tell me that he's as susceptible to the same crazy hunger that I am, but he chooses not to overindulge. Herman eats small portions, and he eats them almost instantly, like an Asian person. It's like he wants you to know he's just fueling up for whatever's coming next. Unless he invites you to dinner, you'll probably never actually see him eat anything. In any case, the only people he invites over to dinner are women. When he eats with women, he slows it down a little, for the sake of the ritual. He's never had what you call a dating problem. He looks for the women who make him laugh. He looks for the women who can make him laugh. He looks for women who might be able to keep up with him. He looks for women that might be able to keep up with him, and he did always expect too much from people, especially the women he dated. He expects to be blown away by a woman eventually. I think he's counting on it. I should explain something about Herman's dating history. When he was a freshman in high school and a pathetic little pipsqueak, not even 15 yet, he went out with the sexiest, most popular girl in the school. As a result, I think he decided back then something about how he should always get the girl, so to speak. He obviously still feels that way, and I think it's getting him into trouble. Anyway, as far as I know, from what he's told me, he hasn't been involved with anyone seriously since moving to Colorado. And I think maybe he's taking a break from relationships. I think he may have decided to take a step back to figure out what kind of woman he's looking for. Yes, this could be counterproductive if he starts to build some image up in his head, but I know that the popular wisdom doesn't really affect him. Love, though, is a little different. Maybe he's a little too rational for his own good. I used to tell him that he thinks too much. I used to tell him that he thinks too much. But he says something about that in his journals. He says he never learned anything from someone who told him he thinks too much. He says he never learned anything from someone who tells him he thinks too much. I guess it's not really up for debate that he enjoys thinking. It definitely appears to work for him. I just hope he finds that impossibly wonderful woman he's been looking for, that athletic, intelligent, charming, hilarious woman with a killer smile and clear, knowing eyes that he's been looking for, that perfect woman who's independent-minded and who also wants to raise kids as much as he probably does. I'm sure she's out there. I just hope he doesn't set himself up for disappointment again when he thinks he's found her. Before I forget, let me tell you what Herman's apartment looks like. Let me tell you what Herman's apartments look like. When he moved to Storrs, I don't think he kept this much, but up in Cambridge, his apartment was fully decked out in true Herman decor. I'm just going to list the items. There are so many, first of all, that it wouldn't really make a difference if I told you where each thing was. It was all in there, and that's all that mattered. Most importantly, things in Herman's apartment weren't displayed, they were used, or in the process of being used, and positioned with purpose. Yes, he was a tad anal. The items are as follows, in no particular order. Besides the order that I remember them in. One American flag, one poster of Bob Marley, a whole wall of art paper taped up with pencils, crayons, markers, and charcoal littering the ground in front of it, 7 walls of makeshift bookshelves, one blackboard about the size of a picture window, one world map and one of the U.S., recent photos of his siblings and parents, one Smith Corona typewriter, one Smith Corona laptop word processor,